Cause your life will depend on the strength that you have inside you. Oh, you gotta be proud, staring out in the crowd when the odds in the game defy you. Try your best to win them all.
All right, here's the deal. So here we are with Franco Fracyon, the ultimate sports dad. He's all geared up. So I need to tell you, I love the wardrobe, but I had some real wardrobe questions for you. I wasn't quite sure if I should wear the original Persian Panther Tennis Academy t-shirt, that one, or if I should wear season 2, or if I should wear the Christmas edition, or because you are the ultimate sports dad of All-American goalie Jack Frack, do I wear the Penn State lacrosse one? I think this is his sophomore year or his junior year. This is the one I got when Persian Panther LLC started sponsoring the Real House MD.
That's right.
My favorite one. I really feel like you upped your game up a notch. This is so much better material. The new number 11 one. Can you see that?
I can see it.
Yeah. So which one of those should I wear? I'm just wearing my work clothes.
I think, we should every 5 minutes just change outfits.
Change out. Okay.
All right. Let me get this off and let me know.
Okay.
My hair is my livelihood. So if it doesn't look good, we're going to have to restart the whole thing.
Okay. Oh, there's the best looking parent in college lacrosse.
That's what I'm talking about. So before we get started, though, I got to be honest with you. I was a little bit disappointed that you got Matt to do your first, Real House MD show, because I know he's funny, he's intelligent, but he took my move. I was going to come in here shirtless and look sexy and everything, but you kind of threw me under the bus with that. But I do have to say, he really looked good.
He did look good. He'd been working out, but you've been working out also, which ties us into. Ultimately, the Real House MD is kind of an orthopedic wellness, trying to get people to be fit. So you're like, okay, Franco's fit. He's 60 years old. He's fit. But why am I talking to you? And it's basically, I feel like one of the pillars of fitness is start 'em young, which youth sports and sports is a huge part of that. And then the effort to get people to kind of keep playing sports. And you're like, okay, well, why am I coming to Franco? And it's because you are the ultimate sports dad.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Okay. So the other thing, and I'm going to tell a story here for those who don't know us. Probably anybody who's watching this right now knows us, but once this goes to the whole Panther Nation, there's going to be some people who don't know us. Okay.
Maybe they don't know you, but
yes. Okay. Yeah. So you and I play tennis together, right? At the Persian Panther Tennis Academy.
That's right.
Why is it called that?
I really don't know. I think it's got a good, catch to it. And,
Okay.
What? Actually, I know how it got started. You and Dan Baird came up with this goofy looking panda bear. Was it you guys who did that?
Yes.
And did the Persian Panther thing, and the guy, the little panda holding a tennis racket up with his butt sticking up, and it just became a thing. So every year we try to do a shirt. I think we've made more shirts than we've actually played games. That's the only.
Yes. So if I'm going to describe our tennis level, we're decent, like we're old man athletic for people who don't play a ton of tennis. So say in the community we play in, we're not the top level, but we're not the low level. We are the competitive in between, right?
Correct.
And we have skill, but our real skill is that we're actually better looking than all the other teams.
By far.
Okay.
By far.
And what I've noticed when I play tennis with you, for somebody who's your level of tennis, but when you're at the net and I get the ball at the net or I get an overhead and I slam it at you, whether it's near you or a body shot, your actual ability to get the racket on the ball and come up with a crazy shot is an elite level, whereas your forehand, your backhand, your serve, every other part of your game is kind of normal recreational tennis. But your in close body shot, kind of balls coming as hard as I can hit it, that is your elite skill. And I always look at that and I'm like, that is like what a lacrosse goalie does. So when Jack is like in the zone, right? And the announcers, Quit Kessenich, is talking about how the ball's going off his elbow, it's going off his knee, it's going off his foot, he's stuffing the attackman in close. I'm like, I've seen that on the tennis court.
Thank you.
Okay. So here's my second thing is we play with one of the funniest guys we know, Dan Baird. You're one of the funniest guys I know. I try to keep up. I don't know how Mike and Carlos and those guys put up with us, like trying to out joke each other. But the other thing I've noticed is that Dan and I, when we start joking, we start concentrating on who can be the funniest. You have the ability to be funny, but stay focused the entire game. Like you'll joke between points, you'll joke during the point, but you never give a point away because of lack of competitiveness, right? So that's another characteristic, like if that carries you on through sports. So what I'm saying is, I see when I play tennis with you an element of where I'm like, oh, that's Jack's dad.
We should tell that to Jack because I tell him he's good because I've got great eye-hand coordination.
I've told him that.
Okay.
So here's where we get into it. You're very athletic. You play a ton of stuff now. You work out all the time. We can post a picture of you with your shirt off, all that kind of stuff. But you did not grow up in a world of lacrosse, right?
That's correct.
And
yeah.
now you're the most famous dad in college lacrosse.
In my own mind, yes.
In your own mind. So I want to know about where you first grew up and like what are your very first sports memories?
Okay, so I think I was 4 when we moved from England to Iran, and honestly, I think the only sport we had there was soccer or football, and I wasn't really good. I mean, when I used to watch, we lived in apartments, and I used to watch kids on the street play, and I always watch. And then finally, my mom made me go down and try to join, and I was terrible for the longest time. I couldn't, didn't have the coordination. But
was this England or Iran?
In Iran.
Okay.
And so I think I would say I was about 7, 8, 9 years old when I started playing, and we after school we'd come home and kids would be playing in the middle of the street, in between cars, just. So that's how we sort of started. And, one thing we did at school, it's funny that I kind of look back at things, over here, everything's so organized. Everybody has, a game plan, over there in Iran, whoever got to school first would get to play, so my mom, I would force her to drop me off at school at 7 in the morning, class would be, first class would be at 8 o'clock or whatever the case was. But I would insist on getting dropped off early so I could be one of the first kids in school. And so I get picked to play, so if you were the, let's say, 22nd, 23rd kid, you wouldn't be able to get on a team unless somebody sat out. So, we used to get to school and try to play. And a lot of times we didn't even have a ball, we'd get a milk carton, the individual milk cartons. I don't know if you remember those little things.
Yeah.
Pop and try to use that as a ball until somebody showed up with a ball. Whoever had a ball automatically got into to play, no matter what. Wow. So, anyways, we used to play like that. We get really pissed off if somebody would like step on the milk carton and crush it by accident, because we had to find another milk carton, and so that's how we sort of played sports, I guess, in school. That's really the gist of it. We didn't have any organized events like we do, these, like kids have now. So it was very different back when I was growing up.
So it was all pickup. There was no rec play or anything like that.
All pickup. We had a school team that I was part of, but we never had like away games. It was like either in school, during school hours, or there was no night games, no traveling to other schools, nothing like that, like we do now.
Was there coaches? Was there coaches?
Yeah, there were coaches. But again, it was we had a lot of like almost intramural stuff. We played, for example, let's say I was in the 6th grade, I would play there were three sixth-grade classes. So we were 6A, we play against 6B, and the winner would play 6C. So, and then we played a few games from, outer school, with other schools, but very, very limited. It wasn't anything like it is today. There was no rec ball, nothing like that. And this is in the 70s, by the way. So you got to.
Yeah. And then what happened? Like that went through high school. So there was really no like big time high school soccer where you're traveling on a bus to other schools or anything like that?
No, so I actually left. I went back to England when I was like almost 15. So I wasn't even in my high school years. So I went
What about soccer in England? Did you play in England?
So here's the ironic thing. Went to England all excited. They were going to be playing soccer all the time. The three sports that they had there, and I was in a boarding school, was rugby for one season, field hockey, and cricket. And the only time we got to play soccer was when we, organized it ourselves. There was no, and we played other schools in these games in rugby and in cricket and field hockey, but soccer was never part of the activity.
Well, I thought England was famous for soccer.
And I was shocked. I mean, when I went there, I really thought that was going to be part of but it wasn't one of the three sports that we played through the season. It was basically rugby, hockey, field hockey, and cricket.
Were you good at any of those?
I was good at rugby. I hated field hockey, and to this day, I still don't know the rules.
What about cricket? I would think you'd be good at cricket just because you got the hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to hit the ball, but I just, running back and forth. Those cricket game they go on for days. I mean, it's like you get done, but end of the afternoon. It basically could, if you watch a real cricket game, it could go on for days.
Yeah. So was there? Did you ever see lacrosse in England, or even know of it?
Never knew anything of it. Actually, didn't even when I came to the States, I didn't know anything about it. I came to the States when I was 16, and lacrosse wasn't even. When I went in college, it was the last year in college. The guys made a club, and they would go out and play other schools. Now, it's there. I was in a D3 school, I guess, for lacrosse. But now they have they're part of a D3 program. But when I was, I didn't even know what lacrosse was. I didn't even play. My college roommate and a bunch of the other guys played, but I never played.
Did you play any pickup sports in college?
We did a lot of football. We did some soccer, ping pong. I was very good at ping pong.
Okay. So back to Iran and a little bit of England. What were you aware of, because now you're a super big sports fan. I mean, that's part of your life and part of being with Jack growing up. He's a sports fan. What were you aware of in worldwide sports, the wide world of sports? What were you aware of? Was it just soccer in Iran and you only knew that? Or were you aware of Muhammad Ali, or I guess the 70s would have been Roger Staubach, Terry Bradshaw, Dr. J?
So, I was aware of American football. In fact, we had 3 TV stations. Two were in Farsi and one was in English. And once in a while, I was able to pick up. I remember one game was against the Vikings. I think we were playing the Eagles. But
in the Super Bowl? The Jim Plunkett Super Bowl?
No. I think it was just a regular game. But our main sport, we always watched soccer, soccer games, especially international games. We watched that a lot. My dad was a huge Muhammad Ali fan, so we used to catch the fights. But for the actual sport that we played, it wasn't basketball, it wasn't, baseball, anything like it. It was only soccer.
Okay. So do you remember a certain Muhammad Ali fight?
I remember the George Foreman fight.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
I remember that. Actually, my dad woke me up and we watched that together.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And do you remember were you cheering for Ali, or were you cheering?
Yeah, my dad was always an Ali fan, and so it's funny. Actually, the book that you recommended, the Outlive.
Oh yeah.
Part of that was about the whole Muhammad Ali, George. I don't know if you know the whole thing, but anyway, that reminded me about that. But my dad was a huge fan, and so my dad worked for the news broadcasting system. So I actually had an autograph of Muhammad Ali, which I don't know where it is now, but I think we left it behind when they left. Um, so yeah, that my dad was a huge fan.
So the one thing about that fight, and I show people this video all the time, is he was in a press conference, and George Foreman was huge. He was young. Ali was old. He wasn't as good as he used to be, and he explains to the press how he's going to win, and he's basically like, I'm better than I was when I beat Sonny Liston because I've been knocked down. I'd have my draw broken. And then he goes into these funny training techniques. But I love the message of he's better than he was because he lost and he went through hardship. It's like you learn more from failure than success. And
Yeah,
the other favorite one I like is when he's walking into the ring, everybody in his whole team, like he's got an entourage, 10 people, and they look like they're walking into a funeral, and he turns around and he just starts lecturing them. He's like I'm gonna win this. You got to believe it. Like it's pretty impressive.
yeah.
So you get to the United States. Did you'd been to boarding school? You'd been different places. You're trying to make friends. Did you make friends through sports? Like, did you assimilate pretty quickly? Like American football, you'd never seen that before, hardly. Like, did you? How did you bond over that?
Well, actually, I got to be honest. I came here my junior year of high school, so I sort of missed. I was everything was so new to me here. I mean,
Uh-huh.
whole, um, we just made friends just through classes and everything like that. It wasn't, there was a football team. We didn't even have really a soccer team at TC Williams then, and by the time I was leaving, they sort of came out with a program. So I sort of missed that window of being able to play any organized sports in high school.
Isn't TC Williams the Remember the Titans?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, I
You
missed that.
went.
I went. You didn't know that? I went to
Oh,
TC.
you went to TC Williams, and you went to boarding school with Simon Cowell, didn't you?
I did. Well,
Okay.
he was a few years ahead of me. I found that out actually when we were watching American Idol like 10 years ago, and it came up somehow, and I was like, I can't believe I was in the same school as Simon Cowell. So he was. I think he finished off 5 years after before I had,
Yeah.
but I didn't know that. But yeah, I am famous for that as well.
So Jack was saying that you guys were always super into soccer. He was actually lecturing Roddy and Andrew and Carlos about kind of not knowing anything about soccer, and you guys were super into soccer. How did you get into football? Like because you got here, you'd never seen football before. You played it. Sounds like you played some pickup, but how did you decide to be like a huge
Uh,
Redskin Commanders fan?
So I was a huge Redskins fan. I mean, and I worked at my first job was at McDonald's, and I had to work every Sunday, and we used to have a TV in the back, where they would cook, and we would watch the games, as it was happening, and we'd flip burgers and still have the little TV and try to watch a game. So I became a huge fan then. A lot of my later in college, a lot of my friends were huge fans. And the biggest regret I have is the year they played the Bills in the Super Bowl up in Minnesota. Um, I had a chance to go to that game. It was 1982, I want to say. And the reason I say,
1992.
I'm sorry, 92.
Mark Rippon.
That's right, 92, because I just started my job with J&J Orthopedics. And
Okay.
literally 2 weeks into the job, and I didn't have the nerves to go up to the guy and say, "Hey, listen, I want to go up to the Super Bowl." And we were driving; it wasn't like we are going to fly. A bunch of our friends they went up to that game, and somehow they got into the after party. I got some of my friends holding the trophy with Jack Cook. So to this day, I regret, like it's like I wish I would have gone to that game. I wish I had the balls to go up to my distributor and say, "Listen, man, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity."
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I was a huge football fan before fantasy football and all that. I used to follow. I used to know all the records. I knew every player. It was some good times.
That's awesome. So fast forward, you're a dad. Okay. Jack is born. And I think I mentioned this, but Jack is an All-American goalie, Tewaaraton Award finalist, elite athlete. But there was a time when he's just a little kid and you're signing him up for sports. and you're coming from a culture where like you didn't have little league, you're playing most of your soccer in the streets. What was that like? Was that like, I'm getting in this because it seems so fun? Or were you kind of like, what? Why can't he just play pickup? Like, what was that thought process?
Jack I'm telling you, and this is a joke that everybody used to say when we lived on Nottingham. He used to just literally, he was like, 4, 5, 6 years old. He would leave the house always with a ball or a stick or a club, whatever it was. He was so into it. And every sport that this kid played, he was good at. It was almost like he was a natural at everything he did. And, so it wasn't, and he was amazing at football. He had every stat you could imagine of any player. He would tell you things. I mean, when fantasy football started back, 20 some odd years ago, before everything was on the internet and like all these apps and things that you could sort of guide yourself through and figure out who to put in. There wasn't any of that back then, so I would go to Jack and Jack would tell me, you should start this guy, you should play that guy, you should drop him, you should pick him up. And like he had the knowledge, like he was in like a dictionary when it came to I wish he'd learned the president's names like the way he does with these football players. But so when he played, he would go outside and by himself, he would throw the ball up in the air, catch it himself. He'd maybe go out to the lacrosse field and throw the football. Down here in this same basement, we had holes in the wall because he would, we put up soccer goals, and he would make me play for hours. Like literally, like I was like there were times I'm like, dude, I got to get up in the morning. Like he would play for 3 hours. We'd both be dripping sweat. So he was really into sports, and his first sport that he played as an organized sport was actually football. He played at Davisonville football, the Gators, and 3-hour practices, never complained. He loved it. He wanted to always go, and he was very good at it. And, so that's how he sort of ran that ship. I never pushed him into any sports. I really wanted to play soccer. I wanted to be a huge Commander fan or Redskins fan. That never took. He was very good at soccer. I still have his first cleats. Actually, you can see this. These are his first cleats.
Oh, I love them. That's awesome.
So I still have his, he was always into playing something, and whatever he wanted to play, I never forced him or push him towards one thing or the other. Whatever he wanted to play, whatever he didn't want to play, I was fine with it. Like he played basketball one season, he really wanted to try, so we did that. And so any sport that he wanted to be part of, and I think that's really important. Not pinning a kid down to a specific sport or a specific position, I should say, and letting him try whatever he wants, or whatever they want, I should say. Depending on who's listening to this, it's really important. Just making sure they have fun with it, and to me, that's what it was. I mean, there were nights that we would go to practice, or I should say nights. There was during football for 4 nights a week for 2.5, 3 hours, but that's what he wanted to do, and so we did that. But it was never forced on him.
It's funny. So when my kids were growing up, in the evenings after dinner, we would go up to the field and we would play kickball, and we would meet the cousins. So the Fernandez cousins and the Smith cousins, and we'd have a family game. And sometimes it was kickball. Sometimes it was more like throw the tennis ball, baseball, but with a tennis ball and a tennis racket.
Yeah.
And Jack showed up every time. So
Yeah.
It was the whole family, the extended family, and Jack. And then the other thing was sometimes we would go up there I have 4 kids. We'd go up just the 6 of us. And it would be like 2 of the kids and my wife versus 2 of the kids and me and Jack. It was like Jack would always show up. Like he was looking to get into any game he could get into. So I love that point that it was innate in him. It was self-driven. You couldn't like motivate him. He had to motivate himself internally. So then you're like, he's obviously very athletic. You can't be an all-American lacrosse player in this day and age without being athletic. Was there any issue that he wanted to play everything or there's only so much time in the day? how do you narrow it down? Did you have to guide him at all? Like, did he want to play soccer and football, basketball and ice hockey, lacrosse, baseball, tennis, golf? Like, how did you narrow it down?
So, one good thing was the football season was a little different than, it was a different time than lacrosse. So that kind of aided us there. But soccer fell into with lacrosse. So he did that for a few years. He played lacrosse and soccer the same season, and that was a little difficult because he understood the commitment that he had to give to play lacrosse, and make practices, and so it was kind of he figured it out that it was too much for him. Again, if he wanted to do all two, three, four sports, I would let him. I would never say you can't play it, and I think as time went on, he figured out like, okay, I can't do this and that at the same time. In fact, I remember this is a little further on in life when he's still playing club lacrosse. He was part of two clubs, because he joined a club in DC, and he was playing there, but that was his primary one. But he would also help out with the club here in the Annapolis area. And that was difficult on him, because one, he was taking time away from other kids. And I think he recognizes this situation himself. It wasn't that I kind of said, look, you're not giving this all you have, or you're taking away from somebody else's time. I think as time went on, he realized that, he's got to focus on one or, a sport every season rather than multiple sports every season,
Yeah. So when he was young and he was still playing soccer, you did a soccer kind of clinic in our community for several years, and it was packed. I mean, it was like 30, 40 kids. I mean, it was packed.
Yeah.
So my assumption is that if he had stuck with soccer, that was kind of your sport, you would have coached him probably through middle school until you passed him off to the high school coaches. But then he chooses sports that you're not really familiar with. So he's choosing football and he's choosing lacrosse. You'd never even seen lacrosse, and you'd only peripherally seen football. How did that transition happen where you're like, hey, I need to stay involved?
Yeah, to your point, I mean, when we did the soccer thing, I was pushing him towards soccer because that was my sport. I loved it, and I thought that would be a good sport, and he was very good at it. In fact, I still have the shirt you're talking about. I bought some shirts too, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't remember this. I don't know if you could see it.
Yep, I love it.
2010.
Yeah.
Sure, with strikers. You see it?
Yeah, I see it.
Got holes all over it. I try not to wear this that often. In fact, if you notice here, I don't know. You see this? That's your sponsorship.
Oh, that's Chesapeake Orthopedics.
Yeah, and this is mine's on the other side.
Yeah,
and I love this shirt. I have it in in the workout room, but I never use it just because it's really starting to fall apart. This is almost 15 years old almost.
It's amazing how much Chesapeake Orthopedics does to help outreach to the community.
Unbelievable. In fact, I mean, they should probably be on the news every day because of the
yes.
what you guys do. Oh. Yeah, but so it was hard for me to, for him to kind of take a sport that I didn't know anything about. I still, to this day, watching him as being at the level that he is, I still don't know most of the rules. We hit a kid, I'm cheering, what a beautiful hit. The same hit happens to us, I'm screaming bloody murder like that's a penalty, and so it was difficult for me to sort of having him go into a sport that I wasn't very familiar with.
So how did you become the ultimate team dad or team mom, as they would say?
Team mom. In fact, thank you for bringing that. If I could show you one more thing, if that's okay. I brought these out. So you see this, does it show up? The Gators?
Oh, yeah, Gator football. Yeah.
And this was one of my gifts that I got on the back.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And same thing, I try not to wear this shirt. But so I don't know how I got involved into being, so involved into Jack's activities. But from the Davisonville days, I became the team mom, corresponding with the parents and, being involved in emailing and, setting up snacks and whatever the case may be, sort of took, and that sort of, that happened when that finished up, AYLA with Francis McAndrews and the other guys, I became team mom. Keeping people like the Harrises in check because they never knew where their kid was supposed to be. They would call me up like, where'd this field? Where's the game? So I became team mom based on that. All the way, honestly, I think to when he joined DC Express, where Jack just looked at me, and this is a different level. He's 14 and a half going on a 15. He's like, Dad, can you not be Team Mom anymore? That's what he asked me. And I sort of stayed out of it at the DC Express level. And then we hit COVID. And during COVID, they weren't allowing any parents to any of the games. There was no spectators.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And to this day, knock on wood, I've never missed any game Jack's ever played from Pee Wee level up through college right now. Never have missed a game. And so I was devastated. I'm like, I'm going to have to start missing games because of this COVID thing. And, so I remember pleading with the coaches, like, dude, I'll drive the bus. I'll do laundry, like make me part of the team. So I got to continue making these games. I mean, I bugged the crap out of these guys like 2 months before the season started every day. And I was a Bullis every day anyways, waiting for Jack to be done with school. So I would go up and bother the coaches during practice. And they ultimately made me the team photographer. They're like, do you know how to take pictures? And I'm like, oh yeah, I've got the best camera in the world. And, I had to go out buy a new camera, got to zoom this big. And anyways, so I got into, I was the only parent on the sidelines. It was because no parents at all during a bunch of games, for one season. So, so I transitioned, Jack kind of let me have that because he realized like the only way I could get into a game is if I was part of the team. So anyways, but that's how that whole thing worked out.
So there's a lot of stuff because I read, I see sports parents all the time, usually for their injured kid, but also all my kids played sports. Plus I've coached a lot. So I've seen parents at every level, and I tend to read some of the articles advising parents to ask and or how to act. And the one thing is about how your kid is out there to have fun. So keep in mind that they're to have fun. But the thing they don't mention is you have to be good enough to keep rising to the next level to have fun, right? And there's also an element where sometimes these elite parents, meaning they were Olympians or they were All-Americans or they are college level coaches, and they're telling how they or their spouse treats their kid as they're playing sports. And you're like, you know what? It's a little bit different. If you played in the NFL, your kid is probably getting a certain amount of attention. So what I'm getting at is, although you're not coaching your kid, as a parent, your kid wants to succeed. You are kind of giving them some advice sometimes, like kind of how to manage it. Like you mentioned, you had club decisions and stuff like that. What do you think the role of as a kid? You're not the expert at that sport, but you are the expert of your kid. So you're trying to make sure your kid's happy. You want to make sure your kid's developing. Maybe sometimes you don't have to worry about it at all, but you could see how there are situations where you're like, your kid loves this. He's making some decisions. You're there. You are the adult in the room trying to make sure he's in the right situation. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, I think the most important thing is honestly looking at it from the rec side of things is making sure your kid has fun. There are parents out there that they, for whatever reason, and I probably was one of those parents, that you think you're actually playing the game. So I think it's important that you sort of differentiate that and let the kid do his thing and not be as involved. There's some parents out there that at rec level that are telling the coaches how to run things, and it's not only is it embarrassing to the kid, it's embarrassing to the other parents. So I think it's important that you sort of really hands off on that aspect of things when kids are involved in any sports. And but I'm not sure if I'm answering your question properly here, but I think, it's a two-way street where, Jack, for example, when he decided he wanted to go to Bullis, from Annapolis, it was in my mind, I thought it was going to be an hour drive leaving at 6 a.m, but it was an hour, 45 minutes each way, sometimes even longer, like on a Friday. I would spend 6 hours in a car driving sometimes. And I remember telling Jack after the first couple of weeks, because it was hard on him too. We would leave the house at crack of dawn. We wouldn't get home till it was nighttime. And I remember telling him that if he ever complained about wanting to make this decision to go play, be part of Bullis, which was a bigger program that could help him get into the college he wanted to, that if he would ever complain about, I'm too tired to go, this is, what a long drive, whatever the case is, that we would pull that and he would go back to his old school up in Annapolis, the following year, that no matter what, that I was going to pull that. If he ever complained about, the difficulty of going to Bullis. And he never did. He never complained because he took that ownership. He realized, like, this is, what I wanted to do. He realized that I was sacrificing my time driving him back and forth to school. And to the point that I ended up staying at school all day. I couldn't do the commute back and forth 4 times. I would just drop him off at school, stay at school till he was done, then would drive him home. And we did that, for a few years. And then he started staying with a lot of his friends during the school week and then would come home on weekends. But so again, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question properly on this, but I think it's important that there's responsibility from both ends.
That answers it perfectly. I would ask now, sports specialization is a big thing. So like, there's, I guess, a movement to not specialize in one sport, but Jack played a bunch of sports when he was younger, and then he specialized in lacrosse. And then I'm convinced when he's done playing lacrosse, he'll play a bunch of sports when he's older. The schools maybe that he was at Annapolis, and I'm going to speak for you on this, like, I imagine that some of those schools, although they're excellent lacrosse schools, their other sports might be more B conference schools. So it's the kind of place where he might have been the starting quarterback, the point guard or the backup point guard, and the lacrosse goalie. He obviously would have been the lacrosse goalie no matter where he went. Was there ever a talk of like, hey, you're going to a bigger school where you're not just popping on the football team at a big football school and a big lacrosse school? Was there ever that like, hey, you're going to be specializing kind of thing? Was it any talk of that, or was it all about the commute?
I mean, I tell you, Ty, I'm glad we ended up doing this, just talking about the part of it. But I tell you this, if I knew ahead of time, there were days I would actually pull up to school and I would stay there. I would use their facilities. They were so good to me, man. They would let me use their gym. I'd work out on the track. Were days I would drive there. I remember one February day was so cold. It was raining. I mean, it was raining and it was cold rain. I got teary-eyed sitting there thinking, oh my God, I've got 3 years of this left. I'm like, oh, think of it like I'm, like there are people that go to jail for much longer than this. I can do this for 3 years. It was that miserable for me, having to do that. But, when he decided to go to the Bullis school, and there was nothing wrong with the school he was at. He wanted that bigger environment, to your point. Yeah. He wasn't good enough to be on if he would have stuck it out, he may have gone on the varsity football team, but he tried that and he was on the JV team and he played that game. But his love at that level, when we went to Bullis, and he got recruited to go to Bullis, by the way, it wasn't like, we decided to go there. It was the coaches that were at his club team in Bethesda, DC, were the guys who recruited him to go to Bullis. We had no intentions whatsoever going to Bullis, with that mind of he's going to specialize in lacrosse. That was going to be his main sport. And so, that's what we ended up doing. But, we never in my wildest, imagination, I thought, would I ever think he would have so many offers when he was finishing up in school, going to any school he really wanted to. And that was all because of lacrosse. That was all because we went to Bullis. And it's all because of Ryan Wade. He cornered me one night and, I don't know where we were in Sherwood Forest right here, about this new club in DC, and Jack will be a great addition to this club, and this, that, and the other. And I remember taking him down. I was one of those parents that I swore that I would never go out of my comfort zone, meaning Annapolis area, for lacrosse. I would laugh at parents that would take their kids to Baltimore for lacrosse or go to schools up there. So to me, that was insane that people would do that. But I remember, Jack begged me, he's like, Dad, you've never let me play for quote unquote these elite teams in Annapolis, Baltimore, just let me try one time. Maybe I wouldn't even get in as a goalie. And I'm like, okay, well, after a lot of arm twisting, we decided to go. And I didn't even enjoy the commute there. It was on a Saturday afternoon, no traffic. I'm like, 45 minutes, man. I can't do this. This is ridiculous. And I'm like, in my mind, it's like, you know what? If they decide to take Jack, I'm going to tell them that, you never got the email, buddy. But there was like 10 goalies trying out, and I felt good. There's a lot of goalies here. There's connections. And there's no way Jack's going to get this gig. And the minute the practice was over for the tryouts, one of the coaches, who was a goalie at Duke, actually came up to me right then and there in front of Jack and said, "We'd love Jack to be on our team." He didn't. I said, "You're supposed to email me. You're supposed to." Like, Jack never got the email. Yeah. That opened up the door. Within the first year, they won the NLF, the club championship in the country. And that opened up the door for him to go to Bullis. They recruited him really hard. And again, I was mocking all these parents for taking their kids, to another, for lacrosse, going 40 minutes out of their way. And this is the way God works. I got stuck in this thing. I started, doing a 4-year commute to Bullis High School, 4-hour drives. Yeah.
So the one thing about like the whole goalie thing, it's one of those positions where only one person plays. So like when Jack was little, he was playing midfield, he was playing everything. And I know he played a little bit of quarterback, I think on the 8th grade football team. Was there ever any thought, any hesitancy ever to be like, you're playing a position where only one guy plays? So like if you're the third best attackman, you're still on the field. And if you're really good, but you're the fourth best attackman, maybe they switch you to midfield so you play, or defense, whatever it is. You can be on a soccer team or a lacrosse team at the other positions, but you can be the second best goalie in the country. And if the best goalie in the country is on your team, you're actually not enjoying game day, or you're enjoying game day. Not saying backups don't enjoy it, but you're not the one running up and down the field. Was there ever any hesitancy?
Well, funny you say this, Ty, because I remember the day Jack told me that he wanted to be goalie. And I remember and Jack remembers this too, because we talk about this. We were coming back from an AYLA game, and he's like 9 years old, I think 10 years old, whatever the case was. I can't remember exactly. But I knew the goalie that we had a swim meet or something, so they wanted Jack to be goalie. Francis was the coach then. And Jack was going to be goalie for that one game. And during practice, that week he practiced, he was like amazing. Yeah, I was watching him. I was like, God, man, this kid is good. But I thought it was going to be a 1 week or 2 week thing, and that's it. And on the drive home, we're on General's Highway. He kind of tells me, Dad, I think I want to be goalie. I want to do that position. And I got so annoyed at him. I was so upset, to what your point is. I'm like, Jack, you want to play college level? There's going to be one goalie, man. There's 30, 40 schools, D1 schools. There's going to be one main goalie. But you're a midi, you're an attackman, you're a defender. You're upping your chances by 5 times because there's so many other people. I refuse. You're not being goalie. And I remember, by the time he got to the Sherwood Forest gate, he was bawling. He had teary eyes, big crocodile tears. And I mean, it broke my heart. And then I'm like, and went back to my whole thinking process. Just let him do what he wants. Let him have fun. If he wants to be goalie, let him be goalie. He doesn't get into a school he wants to get into because he's only, not that good. That's on him. And I at that point, I remember we were getting to the gate, and he was crying, he's sniffling. I'm like, okay, Jack, don't worry. Okay, you could be goalie. You may not even like it, but I just want you to have an open mind for other positions. Don't pin yourself down to one spot. I'm glad he didn't listen to me, but I remember that conversation like it was yesterday, and Jack remembers it too, which was, pretty funny if you ask me, but I'm glad he stuck with it. And, otherwise he wouldn't be where he is today.
So with goalies, I coached both my daughters for years, and they were not goalies. Our teams had goalies, but we always had to have a backup goalie. And I felt like I didn't want to stick some kid into the goal. So I always made my daughters the backup goalie. I was like, they played the field, but I wanted them to be the backup goalie because I didn't want to stick somebody else into the goal. And everybody thought I was a pretty laid back coach. And I was positive. I was never negative, but I think part of the reason I thought I was laid back, I think my voice didn't carry across the little league field. Like, so although I was yelling, I don't think the parents on the other side could hear me yelling. But the days my girls played goalie, I was psychotic, like yelling at the defense, get moving, cover, who's got the backup? Like I was a maniac because although they were in the goal, I didn't want them to get shot on. And I was like, there is a level of being a goalie parent, probably goalie in any sport, that is way beyond the pressure of any other parent. Cause like you don't want your baby having a negative, you don't, the game rides on your kid. They're the last line of defense. Did you notice that ramp up when that happened?
Yeah, and it got worse. I mean, it was difficult at AYLA. I remember they lost in a championship game once, in a mural sort of a thing with another AYLA team, and how heartbroken he was, and how much he carried on his shoulders for that. And it got worse as time went on. It got worse at club level when we played, bigger games, and in high school, and of course in college. So it's nerve-wracking. I remember his first game in college, when he got in. I couldn't breathe. I could feel my heart in my throat. It was very difficult. And you just pray that they have a good game, because win or lose, I mean, it falls on the goalie. I think no matter what happens, um, especially God forbid when they lose, he carries that for a few days. He beats
Yeah.
himself over it. So yeah, it's difficult as a parent. It's nerve wracking. I'm almost happy that it's coming to an end, because I'm telling you, I don't know. Some days I don't know how much my heart could take with this stuff. It's just
So it's a funny thing of when you're the fan of the goalie, because now this will be my fourth year of watching Penn State lacrosse, and now I've never met really the kids. But you have your players you've been watching for many years. But Jack's freshman year, when he broke into the starting lineup, it was a weird thing because you're cheering for the goalie, but you're cheering for the goalie to show something so he can start the next week. So you're cheering for the other team to get a lot of shots off so that Jack has the opportunity to save them. And I'm sitting there watching the game. I'm like, this is the most bizarre way to watch lacrosse. I'm hoping the other team lights up the shots, and I'm hoping Jack saves them all.
yeah.
Now I'm actually cheering for the team to win. I want the defense to play well. I want the defense to stop them, and I'm cheering for the team. But that freshman year was funny. Like I'm just like, oh, Jackson, hopefully he gets some shots. I didn't want him to be in and not be able to show off his skills.
Yeah, I remember. I feel exactly like you do. Initially, I wanted him to get lit up and make a lot of saves just so he can elevate himself, to solidifying that starting role. Um, but now I'm just like you. Like I don't want the ball. If Jack has 3 saves and we win, I'm happy. As long as he doesn't get, as long as we don't get torched, I'm happy with no shots on goal. But I remember when he got his first official start. I guess he came in it was at Hopkins. He came in at halftime. We ended up losing that game, but he had a huge, high percentage ratio for saves, and he played out of his mind. And it was such a um, great feeling, leaving that game. It was one of those nights. It was really ominous because the game got delayed. That Jack comes in the second half to start the game, and he's got a couple great saves. And then there's lightning, and the game gets delayed by half an hour. They come back, it gets delayed again, and in my head it's like, God, he's like, let him just finish this game. And but it's a good feeling when your kid does well. But to your point, I'm in a situation now. I'd rather not see that many shots and win the game. And um, hopefully Jack, retain his starting status, for this year, and everything goes well and he plays great.
There's a picture of Jack, and I think it's his first year playing goalie. They win the AYLA championship, and like he is a little kid, and he's kind of walking, and it looks like the team is kind of jumping on him, like patting him on the back, jumping on him, but he's looking at you, I assume, like he's looking at the camera. Do you know the picture I'm talking about?
Yeah. Can I show you?
Yeah, yeah.
Is this the one?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have this.
So then I fast forward to the game I remember the most is he wins the quarterfinals of the NCAA championship against West Point in his childhood stadium. Like he played in the Naval Academy Stadium a million times as a kid. It's a big time game. All his friends and neighbors and everybody are there. And it just reminded me like it doesn't matter what level you're at when you're successful, when you win those big games, from little kid to adult to even professional, it is such a huge thrill for the kid and for the parent. And there's like a ceiling. It's like that was his whole world winning that championship. And Kirk Cousins just had an interview where he says the highlight of his football career was the championship game in high school because he's like his friends were there, his family was there, his teachers were all there. Have you ever noticed that like every level was as big as it could be?
You know, there's some games that to this day stick in my mind. One was that Army game. Um, one was when we played Yale and came back and we were losing by 8 and we come back and win that in overtime. And then the Princeton game that we played in the first round of playoffs that year where we were losing and we come back and win that game. So some of these games always stick in my mind, but I remember the game against Army so well because Jack and I had a conversation a couple of days before he came up, and he said he was so pumped and so energized because everyone that he knew, people that he hadn't seen in a while, forget about the guys in Sherwood and high school and guys that he went. There are people that he played with when he was a kid that hadn't seen him in a long time. They were planning on going to the game. So for him, it was such a huge pump. I think that was probably one of his favorite games that he ever played because of having everyone that he knew be there, and
Yeah.
and so that's just a lot of fun. Again, it's just going down to him having fun. And every time when we talk, Jack and I talk before a big game or any game, I always tell him, just have fun with it. Don't worry about the outcome. Just enjoy yourself because this will be the last time you play this game against this team or whatever the case may be. And this year he's been more special because this is the last time he's going to play any of these teams. And so I want him to have fun, and I think he realizes that. And he's had I remember beginning of last year, it wasn't a great start for him. He wasn't playing at the level he was. He was, he hurt his ankle during practice, and he just for the first couple of games they won, but he wasn't himself. He didn't play as great as he wanted to play, and he was very upset about that. And I remember just saying to him, it's like, Jack, you're thinking about things too much. Just enjoy it. Don't worry about the outcome. Don't overthink things because that's when things go sideways. Just do what you've done in the past years. Just have fun with it. And I think that's really important. I think a lot of parents put a lot of emphasis. Again, I think that they think that they're playing themselves. They're so hard for their kids, and a lot of kids, I think, and I saw this at football level, back in Pee Wee level. Some of the parents were so, I guess the right word is pissed off at their kids for not playing at the level they should have, or they're playing at the level they should have, and then they come down. They're so hard on their kids. I could see it, and that takes the enjoyment away from the kids wanting to play that sport. Ty, one thing I always tell Jack, I said, as much as it would devastate me, if he came to me tomorrow and said, I just don't feel like playing lacrosse anymore, I'd be upset for me.
Yeah.
I would never give him a hard time. If that, and I know of goalies that at high level that get into a great school and they just don't enjoy it and they've dropped out. They're like, I don't want to play lacrosse anymore. And God forbid, if that happened to Jack, I wouldn't, it would upset me because I would, because it's my life, I enjoy this, but I wouldn't be upset for him. If he decided he never wanted to play again, I'm totally cool with it.
So now with Jack moving past, well, he's graduating. He'll probably play some lacrosse moving forward, but he is getting into careers and things like that. And one of the things that I've observed of you, and you've mentioned it a couple times here, is you were around, and part of the reason you were around is because you were already successful in business. So you were at a point in your career where you could be around. And part of that was because of how hard you worked when you were younger. Like you worked incredibly hard to set up your business so that you didn't have to miss games, you could drive direct to Bullis because you'd accomplished a lot. Your business was successful. What are those lessons that you're hoping will be passed on to Jack?
I think Jack has a lot of my traits. Somebody once said, a couple of people actually said that, Jack's quote unquote not the most athletic, but he figures out what he needs to do to win. And look, I mean, I was very lucky in my career, and I worked really hard. I was,
Who
honestly,
said he wasn't the most athletic? You talking like Bo Jackson said this or something? I mean, who's saying this?
I mean, and they didn't say it in a negative way. They're just complimenting how smart he is, how he's like almost he sees he's two steps ahead of the play. And I've seen that. I've seen the way he does some things. He's really very accomplished when it comes to figuring out the other team or the other game, the game plan. I mean, when I say, for example, like I don't want to name individuals. There's a lot of players that are gifted athletically. They're built like a a brick house, and they could jump really
you
high.
And me. They're built like you and me.
Like when we play tennis, just like that.
Yeah.
Jack can see the field like no other player I've ever seen. John Mandish is his Pee Wee football coach during the Army game when we were at Navy. He came to the game to watch Jack, and he told me then, he goes, Jack was the smartest player he's ever coached at the Pee Wee level. And Jack he wasn't a quarterback or a running back, So he's just said, so Jack has that. He's just very, he'll figure a way out. I think this year he's team captain, which he's always shied away from things like this. I think he had the opportunity to be team captain at Bullis, and he didn't want to do it. He's a quiet leader in a, if I could say that, if that's the right way to say it. He's not the rah kind of in your face. And if you watch him during some of the games, he's just so calm. I don't know how I'm jittery. I'm walking around. I'm not even in the game, but he's so calm, and they could be losing by 4 or 5 goals. You would never know it. He just has that trait behind him where he feels that no matter what, we can come back and win this game. The way he's sort of carried himself in this work process. Now, this is a year that they're really emphasizing, the coaches are on finding your career and using your connections and so forth. The way he's sort of approached that to this point shows I know he's going to be successful just by the way he's handling things. And if he's got, any sort of trait that he's gotten from me, for example, I think he's going to do well. He's a hard worker. He'll figure a way out. And he's just, he's a quiet leader. It's just great watching him get to this level. As a kid, you always wonder how your kids are going to turn out, how they're going to be as human beings outside of lacrosse or any sport. And just watching him, the way he interacts with other people and with people he doesn't even know, the way he communicates, you just know that he's got the good common sense of being successful.
Good. So my plan is for this to be a 2-part series. In the next part, I am in negotiations. My people, my team is negotiating with Jack's team to try to set up a conversation with Jack once he's done exams. Yeah. He's been given a list of subjects to consider. So I'm definitely excited to get his perspective. And one of the things I'm very interested in is staying calm, dealing with stress, techniques, stuff like that at a high pressure position. But with us, we've been on for a while, so we're going to wrap it up I need you to tell the Eastern Shore lacrosse story when I think Jack was like 9 years old, 8 years old.
All
I
right.
think he was probably 9.
Yeah. All right. Before I get, how far are we into this conversation?
I think we're like an hour in.
Okay. Can I get one thing? One thing as I was thinking about this whole thing, that's really important. Could I take 2 minutes on this and then?
Yes. No, take as much time as you need.
And I say this mainly because of parents that have younger kids. You're looking at your watch. You got to go. You got to go.
No, I'm not. I'm checking my notes to make sure I covered with you all the subjects I want to cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is for parents that have younger kids, because I wish I had sort of this guideline as I was kind of, it sort of came to me piece by piece. And one thing that I think is really important for parents that with younger kids now, when they put them into organized sports, is not taking for example, not going to your closest. Davidsonville is a perfect example. I could have gone right down the street, 5 minutes away to a football program where Jack could have played football there and, or played lacrosse there, whatever the case may be. But instead, I chose taking him down to Davidsonville. And the reason I did that is I wanted him to be around coaches that taught him more than just playing the sports. And, practices were 2.5, 3 hours at Davidsonville. And they spend a good 20 minutes each night in a huddle. And it pissed me off for the longest time. Like, what are these guys doing? I left work for this and they're sitting here, goofing around. They would take the kids, and every day it was a word of the day that they would teach these guys about something, and they would use it as examples. And it was basically teaching them more than the sport. A lot of the organizations you go to are about winning, and at Pee Wee level, who cares? I remember half the games Jack ever played at Pee Wee level. Even at AYLA, I don't know if you remember. I have a shirt here too, and you were a sponsor of this as well. Remember the
C4. Yeah.
C4. And every day, they would emphasize on character, confidence, courage, things, and put meaning to it and let kids sort of develop on that. And I think, I don't know what it's like this day and age. I think it's become more about winning and being part of the winning program. But the best move I did with Jack was at every level I've been at, even at college. And the reason that we're at Penn State is not because, they have the greatest program or we're the best or whatever the case was. We meshed well with the coaches because I think they would have taught Jack more about life lessons than lacrosse. And I've been correct on that on every level, from Davidsonville football to AYLA lacrosse to Bullis High School to Penn State, surrounding these kids with coaches that would teach them more about just winning a game. It's about life lessons and how to, good sportsmanship and, things that I think this day and age, I think is starting to kind of go away. So I think that's really important. And parents that are going to do that, put their kids in a program, go the extra 20 minutes, find the right coach, somebody who's going to teach your kids more than just the sport. But anyways, all right. So
I hope that's not going away. And I was I sent Jack a Google Doc. And one of the things was I want to know about mentors in his life, in the other sports, plus lacrosse, plus just outside of sports. I was very interested in that. I hope that doesn't go away. But Jack, some of the coaches I know that he had were great coaches. Particularly, Fran was talking about it very young, those different characteristics. And I always remember him, saying to communicate with the parents was some kids, need an arm around their shoulder and some kids need a kick in the butt, and, make sure you let me know which one your kid needs. And I've even quoted that orthopedically. Like if I'm telling a patient, like, hey, you need to get your life together, I have to kind of feel it out and figure out which patient needs that kick in the butt and which one needs the gentle touch. And every time I do that, I think about Fran sitting the parents down and telling them that. And I'm like, man, I wish I had heard that speech 10 years before, after I had coached for 10 years already. Then I heard the speech. To
your point, important to have these guys surrounded by coaches that do more than just teach them about the game. I mean, we've been lucky. I know I've been, every level Jack's been at, he's gotten great lessons and mentorship from these coaches. Francis being a huge part of that, and of course the guys at Davis Hillman football and even at Penn State. It's amazing to watch some of the stuff that Jack tells me. It just is it's a great feeling, and I hope it stays like that. But some of the stories I've heard, things are become a little bit more about the W's and the L's. But
okay.
All right.
So what is your most embarrassing parent sports moment?
Well,
and then you're going to tell the Eastern Shore story. They might be the same.
Oh, I have a lot. In fact, you may want to do another segment just on.
Oh no, you might be a regular. You might be a regular.
There are some things I could tell you. Maybe it'd be awesome, actually. But the Eastern Shore one, I love that story because, one, you were involved in that, and secondly, it was when Jack and Roddy were both very young. So it was that was a great story, but I still remember that like it was yesterday. So you and I, Jack and Roddy were part of AYLA, and we were going to Centerville, and what a beautiful field that was. It was a Wednesday night, and you and I believe we drove together with the kids, right? Did we not?
Yeah.
We drive up to Centerville. And Jack's not even goalie then. He's playing, I think, midi or defense. I can't even remember. So, and you and I were just following the kids up and down, basically going from from the sidelines, all the way to the 50-yard line and back and forth, depending on where the kids are. And I remember this one play. I even remember what this person looks like, the one that this whole thing happened to. Jack is running down. This kid's got the ball. He's trying to cross the midline or whatever the case was. And Jack's running down with him at an angle. And I'm watching this, and Jack's gaining on the kid. And I'm like getting all excited. You're standing next to me. And I'm yelling, Jack, knock him out. Knock him out, man. Just knock him out. And, I think the kid got by or something like that. And I'm like, And I stand there and I look to my left to see where the ball's going. And I see this mom giving me the death glare, like looking at me like I'm diseased or something. I'm like looking at her like what's wrong with you, And she's like, how could you teach your kids that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, teach him what? She's like, knock him out. I'm like, yeah, knock him out. And she was like, disgusting, I'm like, why is that disgusting? And she's like, well, you're teaching the kids to knock out other kids. I'm like, oh, no. I think you're misunderstanding. No, I don't mean knock him out physically, like punch him in the mouth. No. I mean, he's on the sidelines. Just knock him out of the field. That's what I'm talking about. And I turn around and to get assurance from you, like, Ty, you're gone. You're so far gone, like not even 5 feet away. You're on the other side. You're almost in your car. And I look at this lady and I'm like dumbfounded. I'm standing there like, and that's the moment I realized forever in Rudy's, and when I get in a fight, I want Mark Donaway there. I don't want you. I do not want you there because I was like, and I had to explain to this lady, like, and she never bought the story anyways, long story short anyway.
If it was a guy bigger than you, I would have been there, but I was not going to get into it with a crazy mom. I think I made a good technical decision.
She would have kicked my butt, buddy, all right? You should have been there. I just remember just looking at it, it's like, I even told Jack still knows this story. I'm like, don't be in a foxhole with Ty House. He won't have your back. Anyways.
All right. That's an awesome ending. So this was great. This is going to be a 2-part series once I knock down Jack, and then you're going to come back as a regular.
All right. We're coming together, and don't tell him I wore his helmet. I have his shirt underneath your shirt. I had his shirt on. I have his sweatpants on. Don't tell him I got all this stuff on. All right.
Do you want to say one thing about the Shrine before we log off?
No, just buy your tickets if you want to come and see it in person. This is the Shrine. I love this place.
Okay, awesome.
Jack will be home tomorrow, so I got to pull all his stuff back. Put his helmet back and fix his chin strap. Anyways,
okay.
All right, man.
All right, thanks for doing it. I'll talk to you later.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
Bye.
See you.